let me show you
That's
this.
the
Let me
vibe
show
I'm
you
getting.
this. Let me show you this. Just in the last 30 days, this is what's happened. I saw 2 articles. So if you want to pull this up, one of them is what Hillary Clinton said. One of them is what Rand Paul said. I don't know if you heard this. I'm sure you did. So if you can pull this up a little bit higher, there you go, with the picture shown. Perfect. Bitcoin could become world reserve currency, says Senator Rand Paul. This is October 25th, a little over 4 weeks ago, right? This is what he is saying. World reserve currency, says Rand Paul. Hillary Clinton just comes out a week ago or 2 weeks ago. This is a week ago. She says she fears Bitcoin will undermine dollar as world reserve currency. Which one is more likely to happen, or will both happen?
So I think they're both talking about BTC, Bitcoin, because that's what people assume. I think it is incapable of being the world reserve currency. It doesn't have the capacity to settle anything near what would be needed in bandwidth terms. BTC is heavily crippled. It does not work. It really, really only works for what people are using it for today, which is an investment asset. Front run people, get other people to buy it. You've become more rich, and that's great. And that's really everything that's going on there. It cannot do, even with the layer 2 stuff, all of that stuff is a lot of vaporware. And the stuff that works really only works in bubbles. And so I think, frankly, they're both wrong. But where they're right is that the Bitcoin protocol, what Satoshi Nakamoto actually invented, is capable of doing that. It should absolutely be a both and. It should be a frictionless digital cash. It should be a tokenization layer. It can do smart contracts worldwide right now.
Yeah.
It, in fact, is doing it. But it's on BSV. So what Bitcoin SV is, and this is why Craig Wright and all this stuff is tied together, is that Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin as it was implemented by Satoshi Nakamoto. So there's no swim lanes in the protocol. So whatever you want to try to do, if you want to try to push an entire operating system in one transaction and then have tokens interact with that operating system all up in the stack, you can do that. It's not going to stop you. So miners might stop you. If you don't pay enough fee, the miner may not mine it and put it on chain.
I think the token's pretty interesting because I could anyway see a future where every city has its own currency. And
For sure.
It's a token that's Bitcoin based or some sort of blockchain based.
Absolutely.
There'll be, instead of paying cash to get an MTA card to ride the subway in New York, New York will have its own coin. It'll have its own token.
Yes.
And digital currency, like Pat was, we were talking about earlier, there was land sold in the metaverse, which is nuts to me, man. Because one of my favorite quotes from The Sopranos was when Tony Soprano, tries to give fatherly advice to AJ. Is like, buy land. God ain't making no more of it. God's making more land now. It's digital land.
Yep.
It's crazy.
No, it's true.
So I mean, go west, young son.
No,
west
for
for
sure.
expansion.
And this is
40
what
meta
matters.
acres and a mule.
And this is why. So this is why I'm such an advocate for the Bitcoin protocol, which again, in my belief, really only exists in Bitcoin SV. It's the only one that can do those things. So right now,
And just for clarification, Bitcoin SV is different than BTC.
correct. So they both are.
Break that down.
They're both based on the Bitcoin protocol in a very basic sense. So it's kind of like the Judaism, Christianity, LDS, Islam, and all these things. Like there's forks, right? But they fundamentally
It's all an
are
Abrahamic religion.
They're fundamentally Abrahamic religions, right? So this is all these Bitcoin variants are fundamentally Satoshi-ish implementations of Bitcoin, including things like Litecoin or Purecoin or Dash. All these things are still like 95% the same thing at the very base level, but the way they're implemented has a bunch of different variables. And so BTC is Bitcoin, but implemented with a bunch of the stack turned off. So the opcodes, the stuff that would allow smart contracts, a lot of it just turned off because it's like, that stuff's kind of a security issue. We don't want to play with that. Also, we don't want more than 6 megabytes per hour to go across the whole network, or else people in the third world won't be able to operate nodes. And we want everyone to be able to have an endpoint on the network.
Isn't this what Ripple wanted to do, but they just were dumb enough to incorporate it in the United States? Or
Yeah. I mean, Ripple's the same thing. Ripple is also very similar to Bitcoin in most ways that matter. So almost every blockchain is basically just a derivation of the same idea. So what Bitcoin SV is okay, we're going to implement Bitcoin, but we're not going to have any hard limits on things. So whatever you want to try to do, whatever economic actors want to push on the economy and see if they can create a market, create an economy with a new idea, you can do it on BSV today. Like Ethereum, you can't do it. The NFTs on Ethereum aren't even actually on Ethereum. You own a string of numbers. You don't own the artwork. In fact, people are getting censored off of Ethereum right now for their political cartoons. Like if you put a political cartoon that is unsavory in some way, you can just eliminate the art because the art is sitting on OpenSea's server, or it's sitting on AWS, or it's sitting maybe on IPFS, but that art disappears and you only own the hash. Bitcoin SV right now, there are like 3D objects as NFTs made in, I mean, you can grab them, you can play with them, but they're on chain. They are in the blockchain. They can't be deleted. And that's the only blockchain that does it. Everybody else is selling you a string of digits and they're hosting your file on their servers. And whenever they feel like, you know what, I'm done with this, they shut the server off and you lost the piece of art that you think you own.
Let me ask you, do you own any Bitcoin or Ethereum?
I own a little bit of a lot of things, but a lot of it is old school. Like I've been in the space for 9 years now, so some of it is I probably have stuff that I don't even know exists at this point. But
That's smart not to answer with Joe Biden's guy right now.
What do you mean that you know doesn't exist? What does that mean?
So I mean, just in testing, like if we're going back to 2015, so I actually used to be an Ethereum miner. I was mining Monero in 2016 and 17. Like I've gotten myself into a lot of things to like.
What is the most recent coin you invested in or you bought? Recent.
BSV. I'm heavy in the BSV space.
Got it. So let's talk about the mining, the difference between Ethereum mining and Bitcoin. You'll see one of the arguments will come up to mine one Bitcoin costs, you hear somebody, the $48,000, $42,000, et cetera, et cetera. Explain to the average person what it means that it costs $48,000 to mine a Bitcoin or mine an Ethereum, which is what you used to do.
Yep. So what you're doing when you're mining is you're trying to brute force a number. So the network says, find this number. And here's a bunch of math problems to get you there. And then what you do is what's called a brute force. So you get a bunch of computers to test. Is it this number? Is it that number? Is it this number? Is it that number? But they're doing it at an incredible speed and just absolutely bonkers speed. In fact, this is the most progress in computer science and Moore's law and all of this stuff has been toward breaking hashes, specifically for hashing on blockchain assets. So what you're doing is you're hunting for one number. And in Bitcoin, that is a SHA-256 number. And on Ethereum right now, it's ETH hash, which is I'm not going to get into the math and science of it because nobody cares. But in Ethereum, you use GPUs. So it is like the graphics cards that people want on their gaming computer. This is why gamers hate crypto people, because they can't get the GPUs to make their games cool because they just keep getting bought up by Ethereum miners primarily.
Gamers hate the crypto people.
They do. And so what you're doing there is you can run a GPU farm, which is quieter. It's a lot less energy efficient, but it's the best way to mine Ethereum today. And so a lot of people GPU mine, and that's what they do. On SHA-256, it's specifically ASIC mining, which is application-specific integrated circuit, meaning it is a computer that is designed to do absolutely nothing but look for Bitcoin hashes. Yeah. And so it's very, very heavily specialized, whereas Ethereum miners, when they're, if you decide, you know what, I don't want to be an Ethereum miner anymore, you can put those GPUs on eBay and sell them to the gamers again, and the gamers, there's been a drop, we get to do this. So, but ultimately what you're doing as a miner, you're looking for a hash, and that's really all you're doing.
What's a hash?
A hash is it's a string of numbers that represents some other thing. So I can make, let's say I write the number, my birthday, and then I run it through an algorithm. It will spit out a hash, and the algorithm can always connect that hash to my birthday if that's what I want it to do. So it's a proof of the existence of the first thing. But hashes mean it can be something as simple as a very simple, like my birthday written out, or it can be a whole novel. I can make it Moby Dick. I can make it the entire Library of Congress, and I can hash it. And the hash will be the same size regardless of the input.
DNA.
Correct. It is digital DNA. It's a fingerprint that points to the proof of existence of another thing, but in a way that is standardized and easily attestable. So that's what they're looking for. They're looking.
So why does it cost so much money, though?
Because it's competitive. So specifically, it's if I can do it better than you, then I will, because I'll make that money. But if Gerard figures out a new way to do it, maybe he's got better better computer science background, or he can pay somebody to build a better chip, then all of a sudden he's
more rigs, more energy.
He's more competitive than us. Then I need to figure out, oh shoot, what do I do? Like, do I go to the third world and try to find an old diesel plant and make it that my power's cheaper or whatever? So it's this competitive nature. It is free market economics 100% at play that makes it that I'm going to compete with you, but then you're going to compete better, but then you're going to compete better.
So why is the argument about it the reason why Bitcoin will never end up being the currency is because it costs so much money and it requires so much energy and power, right? Why does that constantly come up?
Because most people are communists and they don't realize it. So people that talk about cost without talking about ROI are dim, period. It's ROI.
This guy. You say anything bad about communism, this guy's gonna try to make out with you on camera. Here, he took off your headset.
I feel you on such a level, Kurt.
Yeah. This guy's slightly poking out right now.
But it's true though. So the cost, the cost conversation is fine. But people that talk about cost without ROI aren't having a real conversation. These are people that should go get a minimum wage job and stay in their lane.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.